The film opens with Phil on the telephone in the desert. He is calling the fiancée of his dearest companion Doug and tells her that they screwed up. We lost Doug. The life partner, Tracy Gather, blows a gasket since she and Doug should get hitched in 5 hours. That won't occur. 2 days sooner, Doug and his prospective brother by marriage Alan, Zach Galifianakis, are taking a stab at tuxedos. Alan says it's alright on the off chance that Doug doesn't carry him to the unhitched male party this evening. Alan is seriously socially incompetent, yet Doug clarifies that he believes that Alan should be there with him. Since they will be siblings soon, they need to pay special attention to one another. Doug goes to converse with his future father, Sid Earn, and is allowed to take his Mercedes to Vegas for the Lone Ranger party since Sid recollects what being a young fellow was like. Doug says thanks to him and commitments that he will be the main one to drive the vehicle. Doug and Alan then, at that point, pass on to get the others. Doug's dearest companion Phil is a secondary teacher helping one to remember his classes to pay $90 for a field outing to an observatory, which they all instantly pay. Phil then, at that point, eliminates the $3,500 from their envelopes and places them into an envelope checked Vegas. He snatches his pack, overlooks an understudy and hops into the Mercedes. The gathering then goes to triumph. Ultimately their last part, Stu, a dental specialist, is at home contending with his better half, Melissa, about the unhitched male party. Stu tells her that they are going to Napa Valley for a wine sampling. Melissa is persuaded, nonetheless, that Phil will figure out how to find a strip club. Melissa treats Stu gravely, however Stu takes it with a grin and attempts to kiss her, yet she will not have anything. The folks show up and Stu leaves with them. The gathering drives to Las Vegas and look into Caesar's royal residence. They attempt to choose how to pay and Phil volunteers Stu's MasterCard as the primary installment strategy. Stu straight rejects, telling Phil that Melissa would see the charges, and understand that they went to Vegas. Doug lets Stu know that they'll figure out the installment when they look at. They go higher up to prepare for their first evening out on the town. Stu lets Doug and Phil know that he will propose to Melissa, and utilize his grandma's Holocaust ring as a wedding band. While Doug salutes Stu, Phil transparently brings up that Melissa is a controlling bitch. Stu and Phil get into a contention and Phil tells Stu that Melissa is obviously not a decent individual since she undermined Stu when she laid down with a barkeep on a journey. By then, Alan comes in with a travel bag and inquires as to whether they're prepared to let the canines out. The four go to the rooftop and give an impromptu speech. Alan gets everybody a dose of Jägermeister and afterward peruses an abnormal discourse to the gathering, letting them know how them four resemble a bunch of wolves. The four go to the rooftop and give an impromptu speech. Alan gets everybody a dose of Jägermeister and afterward peruses an abnormal discourse to the gathering, letting them know how them four resemble a bunch of wolves. A lady leaves the room conveying her stiletto heels. Stu comes to on the floor with blood on his shirt. Phil is dozing on the floor and Alan awakens on the love seat. The room is a finished wreck. A seat is terribly singed, sculptures litter the room. There are a lot of champagne bottles adjusted as bowling pins. Alan goes to the washroom and sees a live tiger. Phil awakens when Alan steps on him and thinks that Alan is envisioning things. He snickers at the way that there is a tiger in the washroom and lets Stu know that his head harms. Stu understands that he's feeling the loss of a tooth and Phil can't resist the urge to snicker. He stops once they understand Doug is mysteriously absent. They likewise note that Doug's sleeping pad is absent. During their hunt, they hear a child crying in the wardrobe. They don't have the foggiest idea about whose child it is yet. At breakfast, Alan makes the child imagine jerk off for the folks and affectionately names him Carlos. Phil, Stu and Alan understand that they can't recollect anything from the prior night. They check their pockets for pieces of information. Alan has Stu's tooth. Stu has a receipt for $800 withdrawal at the Bellagio, and Phil has an emergency clinic armband on his wrist. They choose to make the clinic their most memorable stop. Outside the inn, the triplet trusts that the valet will bring around their vehicle. They notice a cleaning team eliminating a bedding skewered on Caesar's sculpture on an upper level of the inn. Phil takes note of that they probably had a wild evening. The valet drives up, not in the Mercedes, but rather in a squad car and gives Phil the keys. They drive off and make a beeline for the clinic to get a lead on where Doug is. The trauma center specialist lets them know that Phil was conceited with a gentle blackout and that Doug was with them when they visited. Phil payoffs him for additional data and the specialist lets him know that they had quite recently come from a wedding at a sanctuary a couple of blocks away. The specialist likewise lets Phil know that he had high hints of Rufilin in his framework. Phil goes ballistic at the chance of having been assaulted. However, the specialist lets him know he wasn't. The threesome chooses to head there. At the point when they show up at the sanctuary, They are welcomed like family by the owner, Vortex. They can't recollect why, however, before long figured out that Stu wedded a lady named Jade. Stu blows a gasket a tad. Phil investigates a cancellation and Swirl gives them Jade's location. The triplet head to the vehicle, and as they pull out, they are defied by a couple of Asian hoodlums requesting that the them return somebody they grabbed. The hoodlums take out firearms and undermine the threesome before unintentionally shooting Vortex in the shoulder. Phil drives the vehicle out of the parcel. They get to Jade's and find her on the telephone going ballistic on the grounds. She was unable to find her child, who ends up being named Tyler. She sees Stu and is glad to see him, however he cracks when he figures out that she's a stripper who functions as an escort and he gave her his grandma's Holocaust ring. The gathering is interfered with by the appearance of two cops who capture the triplet for taking their vehicle. At the police headquarters, Phil chooses to call Tracy and tells her that they are appreciating Vegas such a lot of they are remaining an additional day. He doesn't tell her that they lost Doug and is compelled to hang up. When they are taken to the cross-examination room, the two officials are furious that the threesome took their vehicle and need to hold them over to be charged the next Monday. Phil clears up the circumstance and afterward endeavors to extort them into an arrangement which misfires. The officials consent to let the folks free yet stun every one of the three into being guinea pigs for a gathering of children, exhibiting the impacts of a taser. The folks concur and climb at the impacts of being stunned by both the police and two or three the children, one of still up in the air to pursue retribution on Alan when Alan kicked him gently in the crew room. After the exhibit, the triplet head over to recuperate the Mercedes that the police appropriated. Stu is shocked that the vehicle is in immaculate condition and will then drive back toward the inn to check whether Doug returned. On the manner in which they hear a thumping in the storage compartment and think that Doug is in the storage compartment of the vehicle. They open it just to have a flashy and bare Asian man named Leslie Chow leap out with a crowbar and assault them. After he runs off stripped, Alan concedes that he spiked their Jägermeister with the roofies, thinking they were euphoria pills. Stu goes crazy, yet Phil relaxes and the triplet gets back to the lodging. They recollect the tiger. They circumspectly make the way for track down Mike Tyson and his guardian in the room. Tyson is singing, getting the folks to participate prior to taking Alan unconscious. It turns out the tiger had a place with Tyson and the explanation they had the option to find the lodging was on the grounds that they found Doug's code and room key and the tiger confined. The triplet are alarmed in light of the fact that Tyson suggests that the tiger might have eaten Doug. Tyson allows them an hour to take the tiger back to his home. Alan places 5 roofies into a crude steak to take out the tiger. After 2 hours they truck the tiger into the Mercedes. While heading to house, the tiger awakens and scratches Phil's neck. The threesome escapes the vehicle and pushes it the last mile of the way while the tiger bites up the inside of the vehicle. After showing up at the chateau, Tyson shows them a security tape of them taking the tiger and Alan peeing into Tyson's cave lake. Doug was with them and they put it into a squad car, yet not before Phil shouted, "Look, I'm assaulting Tyson's tiger and emulating having intercourse with the creature." Tyson asks where they got the cop vehicle, and gives them props when they let him know they took it. With no further leads, the gathering goes to the lodging. While in lodging, Chow and his men crash their vehicle into the Mercedes and compel it into a shaft. They let Phil know that he hijacked Chow, referring to him as my 4-leaf clover and that he needed to bring Chow back home with them. The hoodlums additionally saw that Alan took Chow's handbag with him and that the bag Chow conveyed had $80,000 worth of Bellagio gambling club chips. Phil says they'll return the cash, and Chow gives them until dawn to get it to them and shows them. He has Doug in his SUV with a hood over his face. The group gets back to the lodging and can't track down the bag. They call Jade and let Alan have a go at including cards to win back the $80,000. Alan is a triumph and they make more than $82,000. Similarly, as the security men are going to move in on them for card counting, Jade fakes a mishap and Alan and Phil move away. The gathering drives to the gathering point to make the trade. They give Chow $80,000 in real money and Chow gives them dough. Sadly, it's some unacceptable Doug. The Doug that Chow's criminal hijacked, who is African American, ends up being the one who sold Alan the terrible delight. Phil blows up and advises Chow to give them back their cash and to take Dark Doug. Chow declines and drives away. Phil concludes that the time has come to end the act and let Tracy know what occurred. We hear the initial play behind the scenes as Dark Doug, Stu and Alan talk about the thinking behind the name Roofies. Stu then, at that point, understands that they put Doug on the top of Caesar's castle as a joke, however failed to remember him and secured him there. The sleeping pad on the sculpture of Caesar was tossed there by Doug while attempting to flag for help. Stu promptly handles Phil and removes the telephone from him. He lets Tracy know that Phil is tipsy and that they are going back now with Doug. The threesome rush to the inn and find Doug burned by the sun and crouching for conceal on the rooftop. Doug assaults Phil when Phil lets him know that he will miss his own wedding. The gathering looks at and rushes to the now demolished Mercedes. Stu and Jade have a sincere talk and Jade lets him know she realizes the marriage was an error. Stu inquires as to whether she needs to go out on the town one weekend from now and she concurs. She likewise lets him know that the explanation Stu is feeling the loss of a tooth is on the grounds that Alan let him know that he was certainly not. Doug takes out the missing bag with Chow's $80,000 in gambling club chips. It had been left with him on the rooftop. Phil speeds down the roadway en route to the wedding. A tuxedo shop van drives up and throws them 4 tuxedos they requested by phone. The gathering show up at the wedding a couple of moments later. Tracy strolls down the path with Sid and asks Doug what occurred. He makes sense of what occurred and tells her it won't ever occur from this point onward for however long they are hitching. Tracy excuses him and the two get hitched. Phil is glad to see his significant other and child at the gathering and goes through the night glad to be home. Alan and Stu are drinking at the bar when Melissa appears. Melissa is distraught that Stu didn't call by any means and overlooked her calls. She goes crazy when she sees he's feeling the loss of a tooth. Stu at last can't withstand anything else and goes crazy on her. She asks him when their relationship quit working and Stu noisily reports that it was over when she had intercourse with the mariner on the journey. Phil grins gladly while Doug and Tracy on search in shock.
Alan rectifies him by saying it was a barkeep, and Stu chuckles. He lets Alan know that they ought to go dance, which they do. Subsequently, Alan hits on Melissa and has Chance down. The folks are totally accumulated on the deck when Alan strolls up with Stu's camera he tracked down stopped in the secondary lounge of the vehicle. It contains photographs of their experiences and accidents in Las Vegas. They choose to take a gander at the photographs once and afterward erase the proof. During the credits, the photos are shown.